we're going to keep you on till the break.
I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I get up when I'm bleeding, ready, breathing. I'll never back down.
This is the collision of common sense and comedy. This is Defenders Live.
Oh, it's Friday.
You know, technology is a wonderful thing, right?
Isn't it great? We live in 2021.
So amazing.
The apex
How
of
we're able
technology.
we're able to connect with everybody and do everything and get all these things sorted and situated. And I'll tell you what, man, it is a blast trying to get this stuff sorted.
I am blessed to be living in this time.
This day and age.
This
of
day and
society.
age. This is it. This is the
It is
moment.
amazing.
So
I think we're gonna.
do we hold on?
I want to.
Hold on. No.
Yeah.
Hold on.
What?
Do we want to roll with this?
I think so.
Hold on. Or do we want to just push it off to the next one and make sure, just to give time and a break after the break to make sure, because otherwise,
No.
Okay.
I think we're gonna make this run, and we're just gonna we're gonna go with it on today because today is today, and
why do tomorrow what you can do today?
exactly. You got to
Considering we're not going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you just got to go with it.
Okay, well,
You got to roll the flow here.
Let's do it then. So we have two gentlemen on.
Yes.
One of them is a good friend of the show. Has been on several times.
Several times.
I think several times.
At least
Has
twice.
it been several?
It's been at least twice from what I can tell.
Maybe.
It's at least twice from what I can tell.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, it's been at least twice.
I was told it has to be at least 3 times to be counting as a friend of the show.
So that's today.
That would be it.
Today
So
is
you've
the
hit
third.
friend status of the
You've hit
show.
friend of the show
Congratulations.
status.
Congratulations.
So we're good there.
We'll be sending you your certificate in the mail.
Yeah, that's. I think people know him as under different monikers, especially if you're on the Mojo 5.0s.
Yes. So we met him when he was it Generation Y?
Gen Y, yeah, Gen Y conservative.
He had a podcast over there, and he started doing that, and then he became the Whiskey Tango. Sorry, I'm reading two
Life.
things. Yes. Had that podcast on the Mojo 5.0s, and now he's doing something a little different.
Yeah, just a little bit different. Just a little bit different.
He's making movies now.
Yeah,
Making movies.
making a movie.
How do you? Okay, Chris Ford, and hold on. I apologize.
Are you really?
I am. I'm,
really?
I'm still. I'm.
Dave Bradford.
Thank you, Bradford. I apologize. I almost said Bradshaw, and I'm like, that's not
It's
right.
not Bradshaw.
It's the
It's
ADHD
Bradford.
kicking in.
It's
I
okay.
apologize.
I called him Brad earlier because his last name starts with Brad.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I mean
see
that was
that.
my fault. It happens.
Anyway, so these two gentlemen are in the middle of making a movie, a document type Terry.
A documentary type movie.
Yeah,
You are really good with the words tonight.
I'm telling you, it's. If I could tell you the day I had today,
I don't want to know.
no, you don't.
I don't want to know.
No, you don't.
I don't want to know.
These two guys are patient enough to tolerate us when they come on here. Well,
okay.
we say tolerate.
So you can see us, but you can't hear us. Is that correct? I guess that's Brad. He can't see us. He can see us, but he can't hear.
Okay.
Is that what's going on?
I don't know. See, I haven't got anything yet. That's
Okay.
why I was saying, should we hold that off?
No. That's why this is the best.
Okay.
That's why this.
So
is
then,
the
with
best.
since we have David at least visually,
Yep, we have him.
and we
visually.
have Chris audio and visual,
Yeah, we do.
we'll let Chris start this off until they can see if they can get the sound picked up. And worst case scenario, like I said, we'll just iron it out during the break and bring it back in, and you guys can do it all again.
Right. I mean,
So-
worst case scenario. That's why we were talking about technology being the way that it was.
It is.
It is
so,
amazing how it
Chris, hi.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Sorry, I told
All
you
that to say hi.
it's been a day, brother. I'm
you.
so sorry. It's been a day. So, tell us about this movie you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was brought in kind of a God sending something and laying it right in my lap, honestly. I've been, over the last couple of years, praying to myself, talking about just how do I get myself into the conservative Christian Hollywood?
Yeah.
You know, how can I get in there? How can I make a difference in that kind of scene? Because as we all know, the culture is swayed by what's happening in Hollywood
Yes.
and that's going on there. And it just so happened that I made some connections. A woman named Brooke had contacted me and asked me to sit in on a meeting. That was a Hollywood type meeting on Zoom. And I was just sitting there listening, and they asked if there was any way I could help out with it. And here it turned out to be that we're going to be doing a documentary style miniseries on the Pilgrims.
Okay.
And we're really looking forward to David once he has the ability to hear what's going on and everything and tune into what it's all about. But basically, David his ancestor is Bradford of the colony, the governor of the colony for the Pilgrims. So he had access to the journal that was written by Bradford.
Wow.
And all the personal stories that went along with that. And David specifically was really distraught over the last couple years, if not decade, in regards to how people have been portraying the Pilgrims and saying, demeaning things about them. Yeah. I know I had seen news stories years ago, even at this point, where parents were going into elementary schools during Thanksgiving for parent-teacher conferences and seeing pictures of Native Americans all over the place. And they said, where are the Pilgrims at? And they said, well, the Pilgrims slaughtered the Indians, so we're not going to celebrate them. And it's things like that I think that really upset David, myself as well at that point in time. And I love history. I think one of my favorite documentaries was Kirk Cameron's Monumental.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really great. And this is just a great opportunity. So I was brought in. I'm going to be doing a behind the scenes podcast for them, and will also be a narrator on the series. And we were lucky enough to just find out recently that Kevin Sorbo and his wife, Sam Sorbo, will be narrating on the project as well.
Nice.
And there might be another kind of superhero entering the fray as well for being a narrator. So
What? Superhero
Dean
type of-
Kane.
I'm
calling it now.
You're calling
I'm
Dean
calling
Kane?
it Dean Kane.
You're going
right
Dean
now.
Kane
I am.
immediately?
We'll see.
I am.
We'll see.
immediately with
Yep.
the Dean Canes.
That's my hunch. I just have this feeling.
I was honestly going to go with one of the Chris's.
Which one?
Star-Lord.
Oh, I wish.
No, there's no
That
way.
would be awesome.
Oh, but
He would do it. If he would do it. If you could. The problem
I
with
think
that
so,
is he would absolutely do it from a outside. What's the word I'm looking for? Outside the money. If it had money removed,
yeah.
It's something he would be a part of. Absolutely, I think. The problem with it is
he
there's
can do it for free if he wants.
Yeah, he can do it for free. It's no problem, right?
Whether he would or not, or his agent would, is probably like, nah, I need that check.
Yeah, kind of need that money.
Gotta keep paying the bills.
Right. Actually, I think he would do it as a pro bono. I honestly
All
think
you're
he
gonna
would.
do is ask.
You gotta ask, man. You gotta ask.
Yeah.
No,
But if you're going with Superman, I guess Dean Kane is kind of the way to go. You did say.
No, that's not why.
I'm not saying you guys said it. No, we're saying
I'm just
you said
telling
hero.
who's locked down so far.
Yeah,
that's all.
no. I'm going to tell you why I went with Dean Kane is because I'm thinking of
Ripley's Believe It or Not. Yeah, I know.
that generation. No, that generational type thing.
Right.
And he is the only person I can think of that I know I've seen at least before that from that generation that has at least a grounding in truth and being honest and in everything else. So that's why I'm going there. I could be completely wrong.
Right.
But
I mean, you could be. You could be very wrong.
could be Vanilla Ice.
He's not a
He's a
superhero.
little hardcore now, though. So,
I know.
Just because he was in Teenage
But
Mutant
you
Ninja
always got to
Turtles.
go back to that Ninja Turtles song.
dear
and
Lord.
dance, so,
Right. That's what I'm saying. Just because he was in the Ninja Turtles does not mean that he was a superhero. I've got to.
He was
Yeah.
I've got to say.
he pulled off that zoot suit really well though.
Yeah. Well,
I
it was a
mean,
riot for
it
sure.
was- You're a jerk. You're a jerk.
You know what's really interesting, guys, is that it was just today I listened to the radio and heard some. I don't know if you guys caught this, but the White House, Psaki, came out and said that they are actively involved now in censoring on social media platforms for the platforms Pilgrims. Not that there's like some sort of iffy partnership, but that they are the ones that are going to be censoring people on the social media platforms.
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah. Actually, that's the funny thing that you said that, because I've got the clip of Joe Biden, the video clip of Joe Biden saying that the social media platforms and the people that are posting are killing folks with misinformation.
Well,
Yes.
and that makes it even funnier. So I found a video of Russell Brand talking about this from, or it was either late this year. I don't remember what the timestamp is on it in particular, but he was talking about how basically everybody's all freaking out and was freaking out over Trump and everything else, and they're instead of looking at the big tech companies, Facebook and everything else, and how Facebook is, they're picking and choosing, but when there's a problem, they're kind of self-regulating themselves. They become so big now.
Yeah.
And he mentions that, but they have actually become even bigger than that, to the point that the government apparently is working for them for free.
Basically.
That's basically what it sounds like.
At
And that's
this point.
incredible.
Yeah.
But I think that there's some really interesting parallels right now between what the Pilgrims were going through and what we're dealing with today, which is why David has such a strong interest in bringing this all together in this miniseries, because not only are we going to be essentially going back and visiting what really happened with the Pilgrims, kind of battling that whole 1619 project mentality that's out there right now and the falsehoods that go along with that, but also the fact that, like I said, you have the government stepping in now on social media and censoring people. Well, what was the reason for the Pilgrims actually coming over here, right? They didn't have access to information, the information being the word at the time. They were read to it. They were read from the pulpit. The king basically ordered what was heard, and they wanted to escape and be able to hold that word themselves and have that kind of religious freedom to actually read God's word, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the censoring of that day versus the censoring of this day and everything. So there's so many things going on right now that are so interesting with the parallels. We're getting ready to launch people possibly to Mars. Right? Imagine how crazy that is in our lifetime, that we're seeing people actually go to Mars. But back in their day, they set sail across an ocean not knowing exactly where they were going to land. That was just as perilous of a journey back at that point in time too.
I mean, what was it? Virgin Mobile. So a guy who controls Virgins, that's very fat, just decided to take a space jump, and
Branson,
that guy,
yeah,
the very large individual that happens to be control of Virgin,
gotcha,
decided to float in space for a while, and no problems there. But we have the access now to everything that we have access to all the informations. Of course, now you have gatekeepers to all that information.
Yeah, well, like you said, right back
it's
where we
right
started
back to
again.
where it was. Which is why you have to find different ways of doing it. And I think, given that perspective, the 1620 experience, this miniseries that you guys have coming out, is pretty dynamic with what you have and what history was. Because we're running into the same era, we're running into the same idea. I mean, without a printing press, they didn't have any access to anything, and without private browsing capability, we don't have access to anything.
Yeah, it's incredible the stuff that has to go on now. Again, we're right at the same point where a majority, and not just from big tech and from Facebook and places like that, but the media in general, they're gonna just they're spilling all of these narratives and all of these joke theories, critical
like
race
that.
theories and things like that. And they're just
Pretty
all
terrible.
the systemic racisms and all of these things that have been thrown at us, and everybody is so busy with life, has become so busy with life. They're taking it and not even bother taking the time to do their homework, to check on anything. And we're starting to lose truth. I mean, as we mentioned before, this is 2021.
Yeah.
Technology, information has never been like this before on planet Earth. And there are still people to this day who are like, no, the Earth's flat. How? That was settled, 500 years ago? Something like that?
Yeah.
And here we are. So I don't know. But anyway, so you guys have started on this experience, the 1620 experience.
I'm really glad to get to hear that you have Sam Sorbo and
Yes.
Kevin getting some word time in, because even that alone is awesome to have.
Yeah.
And especially with Kevin, because it like you said the other day, it's basically listening to
His son.
No. It's basically like listening to Batman.
Oh yeah.
You know, you don't necessarily. You remember the cartoon Batman, the Batman,
90s.
the animated series, the '90s Batman. The voice of Batman during that time is just incredibly iconic. Same with Hercules.
Yeah. He does. Is Chris frozen?
I don't know. Chris might be frozen.
I think Chris froze.
Chris froze. And David,
David,
can you hear us? We can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Oh wait, hold on.
Nope, not my.
No, it might. Is it us?
Nope, we can't hear you.
Okay. Gotta love technology.
Oh, it's so fun.
Don't worry. There's
Okay.
It will. There's about what?
15 minutes?
Not till break.
Oh, yeah, 10 minutes. Maybe.
Like maybe 10 minutes
Yeah.
till break. Y'all hang tight because we got to get Chris back on and everything anyway. We'll move on to a story.
Don't go away. We'll move
We'll
on to a
get
story
this
real
fixed.
quick.
I promise. This
Yeah.
is the easy part.
This is how it,
We got
now that you're here.
Yeah, we got you in. It's a breeze.
So
we'll move on to another story. We'll pick this back up. We'll hopefully, when we come back from the break, we'll talk back with Chris Ford and David Bradford about the 1620 experience. Until then, though,
let's jump into this because we were talking about it already. And it's one of those situations. I do want you guys to hear this because this is amazing here.
stop for a second.
What?
Did you? The whole time he walks up, he's got his hand. Like,
He's got his hand like this, like,
Is he-
stay away from me.
no, I, and I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but it looked like it was kind of like for a visual cue.
I think
Like
so.
maybe he has to have the hand out so as kind
Are you
of
thinking?
that guide.
Are you thinking that he's trying to guide himself a center line?
Yes.
Hold on. Let me see here. Okay. I can kind of see that. I'm watching it back and forth here for just a second. It's a little weird, but yeah. All right.
I mean, I could be wrong,
You could be wrong, but yeah.
but that's or at
well-
least some kind of stabilization
All
of
right.
some kind.
So obviously it's got a lot of background noise. Apparently there's a plane or something behind them, but still.
Marine One, probably.
Yeah, probably.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook? They're killing people.
Did you catch that? Did you catch that?
You're killing people. Really?
What's your message to Facebook?
That's
You're
fantastic.
killing people.
You're killing people.
That's it.
I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
And that's it?
That's it.
That's-
The only pandemic that we have is among the unvaccinated.
But okay. I hate it when they do that. I hate it when they make me look junk up. I hate it.
But we've been doing it a lot lately.
No,
You
I know
that,
because we
right?
have to. Because it's here's the deal. So let's click here and
Like, you're gonna do the things and look up the stuff.
yeah, I want to know
Uh-huh.
the exact definition.
Okay.
Define
Yeah. Okay.
pandemic.
Pandemic. Yeah. Pandemic.
According
okay.
to the Googles, which
The
I'm not a
pandemics.
fan of,
It's still there.
a disease prevalent over the whole world. See that's why I don't like this one.
Okay.
Because this stuff tends to change it.
It does,
So
it
let's
does.
go to Merriam-Webster.
Okay.
Let's do that one.
All right.
Merriam-Webster, an occurring a definition of pandemic, occurring over a wide geographic area, such as multiple countries or continents. Countries or continents, not
Not both.
not portions of states.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and typically affecting a significant portion of the population.
Okay, so that by that one definition, you have half of it right because it did spread across multiple countries
no,
and
it did.
continents. But did it affect a significant portion of the population?
Well, I'm not even talking about that. The fact that is he's saying that the pandemic only exists for those who are not vaccinated. Which, how can it be a pandemic which again is talking about a disease,
Right.
if you don't have it? Not the vaccine, but
Right.
let's say you're
The-
not
the
sick or
virus.
you're not around it
The
or it
virus
doesn't
itself.
happen. Yes.
Right.
Or at that area based off of the herd immunity or whatever you want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that's all balanced everything out.
Yeah.
So how is it a pandemic then amongst 2 people over here, 25 people in this town, and 37, and
Yeah.
that's not a pandemic.
That is not a pandemic.
Not even close.
That does not a pandemic make.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't make a pandemic.
Second part they have is characterized by very widespread growth or extent.
Okay, well, so it did have widespread growth,
Well, yeah, but they're using the.
but everything has widespread growth when you.
They're just
decide-
referring to like it.
Yeah, it
You
goes
know,
out.
it's
Yeah.
just a.
That's virus. That's a virus for you.
Yeah.
Viruses have widespread growth. That's how they work.
Yeah.
That's just what they do.
Yeah.
And by the way, a pandemic is also an outbreak of a disease.
Yeah.
Uh,
Over a wide geographical
yeah, okay,
area,
but
such as multiple countries.
Is a
counted.
disease? Is a virus a disease?
No.
Is a virus a disease? All right, can we categorize virus
I didn't think
as
we did.
disease?
I'm not a doctor though. I did stay at a Holiday Inn once though.
Holiday Inn Express or just Holiday Inn? Because there's a big
Yes.
difference.
Both. I've done both.
Oh, okay. Well, you're fine then.
So I have my undergrad and my doctorate.
You at least had that.
Anyway, so this is just fascinating to me when they get it. All he could do is walk out and go, they're killing people.
Yep.
Why? How is okay? Facebook, by the way,
Right.
as we mentioned earlier, is very,
Very.
very much into the censorships.
Oh,
The
they love the-
algorithms.
yeah,
Everything
they
gets
love it, yeah.
blocked. Everything gets held back. If you want proof of that,
Just look at like our stuff.
look at
from-
our stuff.
Yeah.
A year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh,
we were
we were
ranking
crushing it.
in a day per show. In a day,
on
we
Facebook
were getting
alone.
10. We were getting between 1,000 and 1,500 views per day per show
Per day, per show. And
per
that-
episode. I mean,
And that actually
that was
stacked.
5 days a week.
It's stacked.
Yeah.
And then Facebook hit, and
we're-
suddenly
we're doing like 100, maybe.
two. But that's on Facebook.
But that's on Facebook.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying. But that was the point I wanted to point out. You know, they're the ones who are
They
doing
got
all this
upset at us.
censoring. They did. How dare they make it to this point, though?
Facebook got upset at us because we hit a line.
Dirty boy. Dirty,
And
dirty,
when we hit
dirty.
that line, they changed the algorithm on us and flipped it and said, no!
The nights you say knee over on Twitter. Tonight's at DOAE Show Technology brought to you by brought to you on a Mojo 50 budget.
That's right. Shoestrings and some tin cups.
Yeah, well, okay. Full transparency, we couldn't even afford the tin cup, so they're just red Solo cups.
That's why.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, you need the metal to help
that
resonate
makes
the
a
sound a little bit
lot
better.
of sense now because the
Yeah.
plastic really doesn't resonate.
It doesn't, and if you don't hit that hole just right,
Uh-huh.
then you end up shattering the whole cup.
I
and
know, it
becomes
just
useless.
cracks
Yeah,
and it's dead. It's bad.
useless.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a puncture straight in the center.
Big Pharma Steve also on Twitter. Just a heads up, I'm watching on the YouTubes with the 3-year-old next to me and my wife silently judging me in the other room. With Steven's teenage mustache, you're about 5 points behind.
All right, so I didn't shave this night. Thank you.
You haven't shaved in like 2 days. 3
What are you
days.
talking about? I took a shower yesterday, so I shaved yesterday. I took a shower at the gym today, and I didn't have my razor.
Okay, no, it's your lie. You tell it how you want to. As long as you're good with it.
As long as
brother.
everybody's happy about it,
That's
all right?
all that matters.
Look.
So,
And by the way, since we're having a little downtime before the commercial break, so we can get things sorted and situated, the 1620 experience is obviously they're looking for a little bit of help. They are.
yeah,
They're looking for help
because this is not exactly a mainstream thing.
No, and we're going to get into more of it, more detail about everything that they're doing
On the other side.
on the other side. It's an eight-part mini series that they're putting out there, and they do have a goal. They have a goal of reaching $500,000, and they need some help.
Yeah.
They need some help. I've posted on all the social medias that you can see our video on. All the social medias, I've posted a link to the donate page. I'm also going to post up a link to their Facebook as well as their website, so you can check everything out. That way, you can be up to date as we're going through and talking to these guys over after the commercial break here.
Yeah.
Hopefully, once we get everything going.
Get everything ironed out and
Right, you know.
handled and fixed. Because I'm telling you now, as long as we've been doing this on this shoestring budget,
This is usually
we know
how it
the
works.
tricks, and
This is how it works.
This is nothing.
It's fine.
fine. So when we come back, we'll have David and Chris. They're going to dive in and tell us all the awesome stuff they got going on with the 1620 experiment or experience. Excuse me. It's not an
there you go.
experiment.
It's not an experiment.
It's an experience.
Wow.
And that's so much better. I'm telling you, my day.
I know.
I might need another shot.
You might need one.
Anyway, there's so much more on the other side. It's Friday. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. I didn't
All
think
right,
about
so here's what I'm going to do. One, I'm going to end the call and then call you guys right back. And then once we get that, I'm going to walk you through getting your
sound
microphone on.
or
Cool?
mic or whatever.
I'll be right back. Be right back. Will it not?
Oh no, the whole thing. I was gonna say the whole thing froze. Son of a bitch. It did.
It did. All right, so quit.
Is it because line 2's open?
No. It's just decided to take a minute.
Okay. He wants to be a jerky jerk.
Yeah. That's
Which
all.
would explain why Chris couldn't call back in.
Right. So it's fine. So we're going to go join call.
You see me?
I can see you and I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
Now
we can see and hear
everybody has
everybody good.
everything.
We're all
There,
good.
Boom. Everybody's fine
We're
now.
all good?
Yes.
It's
I knew it was just something silly.
it usually is.
That's how it works.
Wow.
Mr. David, it's good to meet you finally.
Right.
I am so
to hear your
sorry.
voice.
No.
My most sincere apologies.
No, you're fine.
There's a
Before we
look.
get back into everything, guys, real quick, the executive producer just messaged me and said Dean Cain is not signed up or confirmed.
Dang it.
So she's a little upset about that. Just say, hey, we didn't say that Dean Cain's in it. Like we're
No,
just.
well, you
taking
can.
guesses
You've
and
already
stuff
told
like
us that you didn't say Dean Cain. We're just saying.
I know,
You
but
didn't have
she's
to
a
tell
little
us. I
upset
was just going to keep writing it out,
no.
and we would have been ignorant.
Okay, so you're saying that we need to pull that back, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to.
Kevin Sorbo.
But this isn't being recorded, right? So, I mean,
No.
nobody can
What is-
replay this and say,
Yeah.
yes,
No.
you did.
No, not at all.
And
No.
David, just so you know, when they're going through the
This is Defenders Live.
Okie dokie.
All right,
Technology.
at its best.
It is best. We've got it fixed. And it was literally as simple as pressing a button, and it was on our side.
Right. Well, I mean, yes and no.
Well, yeah, no, it was. We had to
go back and through and then back and
come back
forth and
in
then
and-
get back. Yeah.
anyway.
So sometimes that happens and it's fine.
Yeah,
That's what we're
well.
here for and doing everything. Anyway, let's actually introduce them for the real time now, the real
do it
way.
properly?
Do it the right way. Can we do that?
Are we sure? Can we
Yeah.
do that? Chris
I-
Ford and David Bradford.
Thank you. Good
did
job.
it,
Well
see?
done.
Thank
From where?
the 1620 experience.
The 1620 experience.
Experience. yes.
Experience.
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 I told you, I can't read that thing from here. I don't have my glasses. Left them at
Now,
home.
okay. Now, obviously, when everything was silent and all the rest of it in the first portion of it, Chris was going on and letting us know a little bit about everything that was happening, and so David, you're
Yes.
a direct descendant of William Bradford. Is that right?
That's correct.
Awesome.
13th, I'm 13th. I have 4 boys, and I have 6 grandsons and a granddaughter. So I got 13th, 14th, and 15th generations locked up.
Wow.
Nice.
Nice. That's how you do it.
And
And
it's,
not only that, my son, Aaron, who is involved with the 1620 experience, in fact, he's the same age as Bradford was when he came to, during
wow.
1630. So, yeah,
mhm.
he's the perfect age for this. But his son, his 10-year-old son, is named William.
very
So
nice.
one of the things I'm kind of geeked about is if we get him in there as the young William Bradford, who's telling a little bit about his life growing up in England,
Mhm.
and they show William, and then in the credits at the end where it says William Bradford, the
Played
young
William.
played by
Himself?
William Bradford, and people are going to freak out.
William Bradford, played by William Bradford,
Played by himself.
young.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. It's those little things that make you giggle. At least
It does. Well, I mean, when you have a familial tie like this, it makes it
Exactly.
a little bit easier.
So I've always been curious when it comes to when people know their lineage like that. How did you know about yours? Was this kind of a pass down through the generations? You've been told this, or was it one of those things where when 23andMe kicked out, everybody's like, "Oh, let's go spit on a Q-tip and find out."
No, it was my Aunt Mabel, actually. We
Okay.
all heard in family tradition. She said she had gone through and done the research, and so we knew her connected. But then when anybody tried to find out about it or look into it, there had been a fire at her home in Alma up in the attic, and we lost the documentation. And so we just kind of knew it existed, but nobody really pursued it or anything until my sister, my oldest sister, Luann, who was the genealogist in our family. We actually met my parents, and Luann came out, and we homeschooled our boys. And so at that time, we took Aaron up there for when you're going to study history, you go to where it happens, right?
Exactly,
So we went
yeah.
up there. We all met out there, and Luann brought out all the information we had at the Mayflower Society house there. And they went back to the back room, came out in a couple minutes, laid out some stuff, and just tied it all right together. Just it was amazing.
That's cool.
It was pretty awesome to just realize, man, there it is. So I feel a little bad about that because so many people have to really painstakingly go through and make those connections. And I feel kind of guilty that it was so.
I don't think you should.
much
No,
for me.
you really shouldn't. You shouldn't feel guilty at
all
all.
the people that have to track their genealogy, but
Well, for one, the only reason why people want people to go through 23andMe and track their genealogy so that they have a record of it, so that they can prove other things in the past. Anyway, so that's a different story altogether. But as far as you're concerned, that is awesome. Most people don't have a family lineage, even if it's one of those things that's passed down from generation to generation to generation, even just through word. Most people don't get that. They don't have that. They don't have their Aunt Mabel or anybody else to just give the information about here's where you're from.
Yeah.
Well, it's also been a very, very important part of our family. In fact, we're going back to the end of this month. Every year we have an annual reunion, and I grew up thinking this was normal. I figured everybody did this. We have my mother's side has a family reunion every year. They've had it for 145, I believe it is, consecutive years. It goes back through the wars,
Holy cow.
and they get together every year, and they take minutes on what happened and who updates on things. And so we just have this family reunion every year. And so we always took our kids back to Michigan every year. That was just something we did. We didn't think, it was an option not to. So I just figured, well, that's what everybody does. Everybody has family reunions. And it's like, it's a little unusual, I guess, from what I've come to learn. But I have always appreciated the history and the connections that we've had. And it's one of the reasons why I have to say I'm very, very passionate about this. When I retired, I wanted to make this my full-time job for the rest of my life is to be a mouthpiece for Governor Bradford. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of information being thrown. You guys were talking a little bit about all the disinformation, how easy it is to put out there fake news or create news, and actually something that's just totally made out of whole cloth. And people, don't know what to believe anymore. And you look at something and you say, well, that happened. Well, how do you know it really happened?
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that I want to do is make sure that there's a lot of accusations, a lot of things about our history as Americans and as about our country, its founding, and what it was all about. And I don't want to be interpreting history. I figure, hey, I got the easy job. Let me just share what Bradford wrote. I mean, he's the one he was there. Yeah. He's the one that put it down. And the thing that always impressed me was how painstaking when you think about how easy it is for us to write things today, and we type out stuff, and if we don't like the way it sounds, we'll cut and paste, click and move stuff around. Yeah. He had to sit down and think about what it was that was important enough for him to share with future generations. He had to figure out what he wanted to talk about, how he wanted to say it, and he got a chance to put it down one time. And once he put it down, it's like if he wanted to change it, it was going to take some serious. I got to rewrite this whole thing.
Redo the whole thing. Yep.
And I just want to be his mouthpiece. I want to. I think the voice that's not being heard today are the Pilgrims themselves. And so that's where I feel like, the more you look into the history and the more you read about the relationships they had, it blows your mind. It's amazing. I can't tell you how many times I've been reading his diary And I'll be honest, it's tough to read through. It's not an easy, but it's been made easier and easier recently to where when you read stuff and you go, wow, I can't believe that's what he's saying. It's mind-boggling.
tough to read
so
through.
I want to just share that with people, and that's what the 1620 experience is all about.
Okay.
awesome.
So by tough to read through, are you meaning that he had terrible handwriting, or are you meaning that he was such an intellectual and smart about many things that he was using words and phrases and the way he wrote and technically spoke was just so different from where we are now?
Yes, that's more accurate. It's not that he was such a brilliant guy that he talked over everybody or talked past everybody. The words they use, his sentences, you read a paragraph and you realize that's all one sentence. I mean, he connected it with semicolons. And back then, the spelling, when you read his diary that was written at that time, there were no rules about spelling. So a lot of times you do it phonetically. You'd write a word and you're reading a word going, what is that? What is he saying? And then he spells it differently later. And this was common. This was spelling didn't get standardized till much later when Webster and Daniel Webster and that's a later invention. But back then it was common to try to figure out what words he's saying here. What does he mean? So there's been some efforts to make it a lot easier to read so that it's more accessible to people. There's a great edition that just came out, a 400th anniversary edition of his journal of Plymouth Plantation that does exactly that. It's got commentary. It's just such a wonderful, remarkable resource that I would commend to anybody.
Nice.
It's the latest edition. Yep.
Yeah, I did my darndest for quite a while to read the Old English like spellings and everything else, and I was like, like I would go back to 1500s and 1600s.
I've tried that too,
because they've put it in type, but when they put it in type, they use S's for F's and F's for S's and all the rest of it and weird spellings, and that was fun in itself to try to go through. But yeah, but
that's another thing though you just reminded me of that's very different about this is a lot of people aren't necessarily readers. And one of the reasons we're putting this into a mini-series is because there is a lot of people access information now through a visual medium, and we want to make sure in homeschool curriculums and things like that, we want to reach people with the truth of the history that was shared so that they can so that a lot of this stuff will fall apart that people are throwing out there. It's so insane that if you have anything to refute it, I mean, anything that's credible and reliable. But I remember the other thing he wrote in the third person. So if you ever read a Plymouth Plantation, he's always talking about they and them, and it's so you're always wondering, well, who's he talking about? Especially when he says that 3 or 4 times in one long sentence. Who is the they and the them? So what I did, and what my son and I did, was we took the diary and we converted it to first person because we were going to be sharing it. We wanted to do first person presentation. So we learned the dialect. We got dialect tapes from up at Plymouth Plantation. My wife makes period clothes. So we were going to be William Bradford. If you've ever been to Williamsburg, where they have those people, one of my favorites is the guy that does Richard Schumann, who plays Patrick Henry. He is just, I'll never forget when I first heard him. It was like within 3 minutes, I thought, I'm really talking to Patrick Henry. This guy's legit. He's for real.
I want to take my kids up there.
And I wanted to do that with William Bradford. I wanted to be able to take his words and say I and we and actually tell his story as if I'm telling it to you. And again, when you take the liberty of just converting the sentences into first person, all of a sudden, what you understand he's talking about, what he's saying is just, you go, wow, this is amazing.
It opens up almost a new world.
That's what we want to do with this 1620 experience. We want to share his understanding of who they were, why they did the things they did, and again, share his diary so that you can't argue with it. It's kind of like the Bible. You say you got a problem with the text there, take it up with the author. Okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just telling you what it says. Okay?
Yeah. I'm just reading it here at this point. All right.
It's literally the messenger.
It's like, hey, you got a problem with it? So he's the one that wrote it. So,
Take it up with him.
And that's but speaking of, so you have a few messengers. We talked about it a little bit when we were over there, and you have the Kevin Sorbo and the Sam Sorbo, and your son Aaron is also, and he's playing specifically William as we go through, and Chris is obviously going to be doing some narrating as well, from what I can tell. Yes,
yes.
And
As he sits.
Yeah, there's narration, voiceovers, and a main narrator who sort of carries the story. But then we're going to reenact, or actually some of the more dramatic events that occurred that most people don't know about, that
Right.
are just, they need to know about these things, because it's history that just blows away all this idea that they came over with the intention of being, just dominating, killing people, genocide, all this sort of stuff. That doesn't appear anywhere in the first 50 years of the colony. It's
Right.
just that, and to really understand them, you have to really understand their faith. It is they better than anybody are the ones who exemplify the three critical things about what it means to be an American: the freedom and liberty, personal freedom and liberty, faith, their commitment to living out the New Testament church to their world, and being honest brokers, and treating people with dignity and respect, and fairness and equality, and all the things that we value as Americans. They exemplified all this stuff. If you want to talk later, 1690, 1675, King Philip's War, and after, and everything that happened later that led up to the American Revolution, you can find things here or there that you can talk about, that things that happened that were good and bad. And the Pilgrims, by no means, that's the other thing I want to get across too, is I'm not here to paint this rosy picture, and Bradford didn't either. That's the thing that most people don't realize. If you read of Plymouth Plantation, if you wanted to paint this, they were just such perfect people and stuff, you wouldn't put a lot of the stuff in there that he put in there.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the Bible. My sister used to say that, you read the Bible, and it's like some of that stuff's kind of tough to take. What if somebody was trying to put a positive spin on it? They certainly wouldn't include all this, sin
Extra
and all this
stuff,
stuff that,
so you kind of failed when you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bradford's the same way. He said, you don't want to share this stuff, but this is important for people to know. And he gave an honest description. He was like a reporter. He was sharing the history of the colony, from the time they were in England, the 12 years they spent in Holland, and then the time they spent over in New England. So
Wow. See, this I love this stuff because, again, like we mentioned before about it. One, people aren't being taught this stuff. They're not.
They're not.
They're being indoctrinated for all this other stuff. They're not taught actual history. And then you throw in, as we mentioned again before the break, when you have big tech and you have places like Google and things like that who block a lot of this stuff, it makes it really hard to do research for yourself when you want to do.
Like, if you wanted to find out about this stuff, it would take you years.
Yeah.
Years. And most of the information that you found.
Here's the scary part to me is
trash.
with the 1619 project, this has been designed to be put into schools. So this is going out. That's why you're seeing in the news all these people coming up with these, parents coming up to the school board meetings, if you've been watching these things, because of critical theory and all this. This stuff was designed to be put into schools, because I know in my state of Delaware, I don't even believe they go back that far anymore. You say they don't teach it. You're right. So there's now a void there. So what are they filling it with? They're filling it with this recentering the entire early American history on this on slavery, and that was the centerpiece. And Black history is what is the centering event of all of American history.
Yeah.
In Delaware, they only go back as far as the Revolutionary War, the founding, 1776. That's where we start. That's where history starts
in Delaware,
in our schools. So if you want to go back to the early founding, the only story you're going to start here now is the 1619, is when the slave ship, or not even
Sure.
I'm not even
What-
sure it was slave ships. They were, there's a good chance they were indentured servants at that time. So
Right.
But that's the fascinating
there's
part
no
too.
there's no history. That 1619 project is not history. It's storytelling. It's a narrative that's being told to people.
It's a
And
lot of
being
narrative.
told to your kids, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well no, it's even in our generation. I know for like going through school, I know you don't know because you were homeschooled, but in our generation, going through school, everything was based upon the economics. That was it. It was the economics of everything. So everything, every decision was made based upon money. Everything that was done was based upon taxes. Everything it was all money, all the time. That's how they taught history of America. All money, all the time.
It wasn't money. It was certainly what did they have to gain.
Yeah.
And when you look at what did they get for it, what was their temporal payoff for what they did, and then whatever that is, that's why they did it.
Right.
And that becomes why they did it.
Yeah.
They wanted to take their land. Why? Because they their land ended up becoming owned by the Puritans, the people that. The English that came over and domesticated, or whatever you want to call it, or settled.
They settled on it.
And so because that happened, that's why they did it. They came over to get the land. It's like, no, that's not why they did. They didn't even.
Yeah.
There's so many things that, again, gets back to their true motivations, and having a biblical worldview is something that they did. Most people today have a hard time even understanding what that means. Yeah. But when you look at the providence of God and how the sequence of events that happened in the early years of that colony, you just it's like a blind man could see it. It's so obvious that was not anything that they manufactured, that it was clearly the providence of God in so many things. And of course, Bradford's, you can't read a page of his diary without him talking about, and it pleased God to do this, and God wanted this happen. He was giving you the unfolding of history from the author. This is what God was doing. It wasn't us. It wasn't that he does talk about the interactions he had with them, but it was all because God did it all. We didn't do it. We were just wanted to be useful instruments of him to bring the truth of the gospel to the people in the Indians, and they had a fantastic relationship with the Pokanoket tribe.
Yeah, and that the funny thing about that, when you say that they had a great relationship with this tribe or that tribe or whatnot, what you find out if you actually go back into history, there was a lot of cases to where when the English first settled on the land, they were helped by all these tribes. Not only were they helped by them, but they actually became mutually beneficial partners in a lot of situations. And then when situations arose to where these English, who are used to trading and doing it, bartering and all the rest of it, they were like, hey, can I buy this land from you?
Yeah.
And then the natives were like, this land isn't ours.
It's not to
but
sell,
it's also
but
not yours, but we'll take your money.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, we'll take your trade. We'll take your furs.
That's something that's kind of interesting too. Jeremy Bangs, who is really he knows more about the Pilgrim history than probably any human being alive, because we've learned so much more too in the last. Bradford's diary wasn't found until 1853 or 1855.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. Because it had been lost for about 150 years. It ended up going back over to England. It somehow made its way back to England. It was in the Old North Church of Boston, and they figured that when the British troops evacuated, somebody probably thought, oh, this would be handy to read sometime on the boat ride.
It's a long road back.
That's where they ended up finding it, and it took many, many years of negotiations with ambassadors and a Delaware ambassador to England, Samuel Bayard, ended up getting it back. It's now in the State House in Boston. But
very nice.
It's got its own history all itself.
How it can be.
Well, but what
Stephen? Oh, sorry.
Go go ahead, Chris.
No, the one thing I wanted to point out is that one of the main reasons why I was really excited to get involved in this project is the fact that there's a homeschooling curriculum agenda that kind of goes with this. So along with everything that we're doing with the series, we're also tying that to a homeschool curriculum that we're going to really try to push out to go along with the series once everything is kind of cohesive with each other, to really help with that kind of educational portion, which is what Dylan was talking about there in regards to there is a lot of misinformation out there that's happening with the children right now and what they're learning. It's not only misinformation, I really feel it's deliberately evil information that is being pushed on these people and children to guide them in a direction to give them a warped sense of American history. I mean, this is exactly what we're seeing with athletes right now disrespecting the American flag and not understanding that the reason why they're standing there achieving what they're achieving is because of the freedom of what that represents from all the way back from the Pilgrims to the Founding Fathers and what they brought to us. And the fact that you can stand there and disrespect it, even though I support your right to do that as a First Amendment, you're kind of blindsided by the fact that you don't even understand where that freedom to disrespect it came from, because we are not teaching correct history anymore. And I think that, David, his son, one thing that he needs even more credit for, I went down there, I think it was about a month ago at this point. We spent some time in his home, great family. We were sitting there, and David is a wealth of knowledge. I mean, just sitting there and talking to each other, we fed off of each other with excitement on everything going on. He was telling some really great stories about the Pilgrims that I never heard. I never heard these stories before. And
most people haven't. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And what's great about that is they, as a family, are going to take that into the educational portion and really push that out along with the miniseries. And I got to be honest with you guys, the ambitions are even bigger than that. What we're hoping to achieve with the miniseries alone is just what we hope is a stepping stone to bringing the Pilgrims to the country or the world as a whole in regards to the education and what we can do with it. But the other thing I wanted to bring up too is in regards to David and his son. The one thing that he hasn't led on yet, if you look into them, is that they have a serious past in reenactments and everything. And his son Aaron down south, actually, I forget. Are you guys in South Carolina?
North
Carolina, okay. But where is Aaron, David, in Georgia?
He's in Savannah, Georgia right now.
Savannah, Georgia.
We know a guy.
I noticed called Liberty Encounters. Is that correct, David?
Yes, Liberty Encounters. He's, in fact, he is his whole life since he's 12 years old has been teaching history to kids. His peers in homeschooling groups would get together. He'd go out and map out. I'd drive him around and he'd see some ground and go, oh, this is the ground. It looks just like, we can do the Sunken Road. We'll do the battle, from Antietam. And so he gets all his the moms and everybody brings all the kids out there, boys and girls, and they sit there and he tells them what happened at the Battle of Antietam. And then they go and reenact it. All right, who's going to be the Confederates? And they just have a ball. He started doing that when he was 12 years old. And now he's down in Savannah. He works for the Coastal Heritage Society. Where he is at Old Fort Jackson. It's the Civil War fort that's right on the James River there.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And he's a history educator. That's what he does for a living. That's what he went to school.
Now we have another reason.
I got another reason now. I was gonna say, because you said Alma. When you said Alma earlier, were you referring to Alma, Georgia?
Alma, Michigan.
Oh, Michigan. Never mind. I was going to say, hold on a second.
But as far as Savannah goes, no. But
still, no. I have got a family that lives down there, and then we've got some listeners that live in Savannah, and so I've commuted back through there and stuff, and so I've
I actually have family,
and he's got family on the other side
in Georgia. That's okay. So
it's a small world.
By the way, I couldn't tell at all that David was profoundly knowledgeable in anything that we're talking about. Not at all.
Clue.
Nope,
not a clue.
I had no clue. And before
I get a little animated.
No, that's awesome. Really, no, that's great. But before. Because we have a commercial break coming up to cut into the next hour and all the rest of it. Before we get there, it's an 8-part series. How long are each episode?
it's a 30-minute block of time episode.
Good. So
It's
you
4
guys,
hours
so you
total.
guys
So they're
understand. You understand that people don't have any attention spans anymore. Good job.
There you go.
So you have
Break it into bite-sized pieces.
bite-sized pieces. It's an 8-part miniseries. It's coming out, man. These guys are gonna knock it out of the park. They've got 76 days on their fundraiser over at MovieBank.tv. I sent the link out on all the social medias. Go check it out. 1620 Experience. They're trying to hit a goal of $500,000. That will help them get everything sorted, separated into place. And by the way, it has not been confirmed that Dean Cain is going to be on.
it hasn't. But
It
at
has
this
not
point,
been confirmed.
it hasn't. But what has been confirmed is if we don't help them get to this point,
then
I will be the one.
to have to
It'll
take
be
the
a
Dean
one
Cain
man.
part?
It won't be the 1620 Experience. It'll be the 1620 Experiment, and it'll be me reenacting
You,
everything
by yourself.
by myself as a one man show. And you don't want that.
There's going to be drums and cymbals and things.
It's gonna be
not gonna, He's going to be
fantastic.
like an old time bard on the street. But we'll be right back right after this.
Sorry, we ran out of time there for a minute. Yeah. So you guys are welcome to hang around and stick over. We
I
can
mean,
talk
I'm
more about
good
it on
to
the
talk
other
about
set if you
history.
want
It's
to.
fine.
If you got something you need to do and go, it's anything else you guys want to square up.
You know what I would suggest, actually? David told me a story about Bradford healing one of the chiefs, right?
Well, it was Governor Winslow, or not Governor Winslow. He wasn't governor at that time, but Edward Winslow had made a trip up to Soams, where Massasoit was deathly ill and had hours to live, and all the sachems or chiefs from the
Hold up.
Ho. Yeah.
Wait until we get to the actual line.
Save it.
Wait until we get to the line. If you want to talk,
Dave,
I would love to talk about it.
Could you do that story in a condensed version?
Okay, condense it.
No, I don't care about condensing it. We've got a whole nother hour. You guys can stay for as long as you want.
I'd rather talk history than the BS that's going on in the world today. Anyway,
To give you an
so.
example of the other things that we have, Democrats decide to stuff the $3.5 trillion spending bill with immigration policies. We already talked about Biden. Court rules against a university targeting Christian groups. That's good because they're saying that the court's saying that they're hard pressed to find any more blatant example of discrimination. So that was good. That's nice. It's nice there.
Yeah, DACA ruled unlawful by a federal judge.
So also good.
Yeah,
Also good.
Okay, yeah, I saw that.
North Carolina surgeon performs their first artificial heart transplant
Wow.
they did that today or yesterday.
in the U.S. So that's nice.
There's a.
Don't keep me around any longer than possible. God has a plan.
That's what I'm saying. There's a reason why we all have an expiration date.
Are you saying that you shouldn't go past it?
Yeah, I don't want to.
I don't want to.
Start to smell. That's all I'm saying.
I'm already there now. I'm trying to figure out. I'm beginning to believe that I am the durian fruit of the humankind. That's just how it is.
If you don't know what durian fruit is, don't look.
Don't look.
Don't ever
It's the
go near it.
nastiest smelling.
Like, look it up on the internet, but don't ever go near it.
It's because that
Never.
that, my friends, is an experience.
I didn't even get the real fruit. Okay,
We had it on crackers, and it was artificial.
so we did a show, and to start the show, I had little candies.
which we never did.
We never did the candies. The kids did the candies, and they actually like that, and they're weird. But we had candies. I know. And then we had these crackers, and the crackers, instead of cheese filling,
It was durian fruit.
it was durian fruit filling.
I'm getting word that people can actually hear us right now.
Only on
Is
video.
that possible?
Only
Yeah.
on video right now.
Yeah, only on the
okay.
videos.
All right.
Yeah,
Not on the radio, on
the
video.
radio side, they're doing
Gotcha,
commercials.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, if you're watching on the video, you can see us and hear us and dance around. Actually, you
What's
can't
that
see us.
called? Is something a hot mic or something?
The hot mic.
Yeah, we're the hot micing it right now.
We do this on purpose. We used to play music here. We used to play music at this time, but because of the social medias, even though we have the rights to be able to play stuff and stuff, they were pinging us, and there was no way we could monetize anything.
Nothing.
So we shut it down and just left it open as kind of a.
It's like,
Hey, if you're watching-
More fun behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. Here's a bonus for you, something you don't get to catch on too much. So
And I mean, it's obvious that we're being listened to because we have people tweeting us. You're bringing guests on and start talking about durian fruit, really?
Yeah, well, it's
Take that as a modest reprimand there.
yeah. We were.
Hey, you know what? He was talking about healing some guy. I talked about durian fruit, which is going
Oh.
to kill people, and it's all going to be. It'll be fine.
It'll be good.
It'll be all right.
All right, we're getting ready
we
to
got
come
like
back.
5 seconds. So.
I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I'll never back down. I get up when I'm bleeding, ready, breathing. I'll never back down.
This is the collision of common sense and comedy. This is Defenders Live.
Thought I was 6 feet under.
Oh my goodness! It's Friday.
It is Friday.
Friday.
And you know, it's actually a
Friday.
surprise for Friday.
What do you mean? Oh, the fact that we have guests?
Not
or-
just the fact that we have guests,
That-
but we
'cause
have
that's a
guests.
surprise.
But we have guests that are willing to stay a little extra time.
I know most people that get on with us are like, "All right, is it time to go? Because I got to go. Suddenly
it's-
have to pee."
It's mainly because of the time frame, and I understand that.
yeah.
But still, when you're live at 10 o'clock now,
Yeah.
it makes it difficult on people. I understand.
So yeah, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us because, I mean, I would say that means you're good guys, but I also feel that there might be a twinge of, I don't know, brain damage or something somewhere.
No, that's you. That's you that you're hearing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. Don't worry about
That
that.
answers
was
the
you.
questions.
Yeah, the twinge of brain damage. That was you, definitely, for sure. Huh?
Anyway, so we're hanging out tonight with Chris Ford and David Bradford from the 1620 Experience.
Oh, you got it.
In your face. Oh, those guys are creating an 8-part mini series on the life of, or is it? Can we say it's the life of, or is it just kind of the pilgrimage in general? I know that it's centered around your 13th generational grandfather.
Well,
But-
he's the guide. He's the one that's
He's the
taking
guide.
us
Okay.
through the trip. But it's about. In fact, he talks very little about himself. It's interesting. One of the things many people don't know is that his wife Dorothy, when they came over, they left their 2-year-old son John back in England or back in Leiden with the Pastor Robinson, and when they landed in November, the first week in December, he was out exploring with about 10 other guys. They came back to the ship, and he had discovered or learned that Dorothy had slipped off the deck and had fallen into the harbor and drowned.
Oh no!
Like 3 days shy of his 7th anniversary.
Oh no!
And he doesn't say a word about it in the journal, in the diary. It was not a personal diary. He wasn't just keeping his own thoughts about what he thought of things, and it wasn't a personal diary. From the very beginning, when he started writing this, he was writing to tell people about these group of believers that began in the Midlands of England, and they were basically forced to flee to Holland. They were in Amsterdam for a year, and then were spent another 11 years down in Leiden. So he's telling their story, not him. It wasn't about him. So, but he's a very interesting person. The more you study about his life, the more amazing it is what God did, not only through him, but through those. He shares God's work through Bradford as his servant, but it was the pilgrim story. It was really this congregation.
Yeah, it's more the story of everybody that he was with.
Yeah, it's the true beginning.
Right.
Because that's, again, and we've danced around it and mentioned it before, but with all the misinformation and the things that people make up and say and are trying to, the pilgrims only came over here to wipe out the people and they were all greedy and yada 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 and
Pox blankets.
and we've gotten to a point, and part of it you have to understand is it's the society that we're in. Society is looking at everything from a tribalistic, generalistic type situation. So we're not looking at it from, well, this one individual came in and may have done something wrong, and that's wrong, and everyone else kind of ostracized him and he was punished. No, he is what represents the entire group, and that entire group is what they were, and that's where we're at.
Sadly.
And it's so
exactly right.
frustrating.
And
It is frustrating.
But you lose all the good stories.
You do.
You lose all the stories that are things that are just awe-inspiring. Like over the break, for those who aren't watching on the YouTubes or all the rest of it,
Shame on you, by the way.
shame on you. Shame. Chris was trying to prod David into telling us
gonna
a
say
story.
goad, but yeah.
And I'd love to hear it. It's the healing of Native American chieftain or something like that.
Well, the Massasoit Assamequin was the
Hold on. Spell that.
MASSOI.
Holy cow. I'm not going to lie, David. For a second, when you said that, and if I hadn't have seen your mouth moving and you continue on speaking, I thought you had like a slight stroke for a second. I'd never heard that before. I apologize. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Homeschooled.
Children started writing. They refer to the Massasoit.
Okay.
But actually, that's his title. It was not his name. His name was Assamequin.
Okay.
Or Yellow Feather was what it stood for. But he was the supreme chief of the Wampanoag Confederation of Tribes. There was like 30-some individual. They had their own chiefs or sachems, they call them. Mm-hmm. And he was the head of that Wampanoag tribe. But that's the group. The Pokanoket tribe was the tribe he was from, Massasoit Assamequin. And he's the one that was a remarkable man. He was like the George Washington of the Confederation. I mean, he was well respected. Everybody just thought the world. All the descriptions of him were great. I mean, he was a wonderful human being, and he's the one that made peace with the Pilgrims. And there were several chiefs that weren't necessarily happy with that. They didn't like it, but again, everybody honored and respected him. Well, there was some problems that developed, and I won't go into all of the reasons why there was after they had made this peace treaty, part of what they needed to do was to, if somebody was warring against them, you were supposed to turn that people over to each other. Well, Massasoit was a little upset with Squanto, who was another Indian who was helping the Pilgrims, and he had asked for him to be turned over for punishment, which from what he was guilty of in Indian tradition was he was guilty of sedition. He was undermining the authority of Assamequin and would have been killed. I mean, and Pilgrims knew that, so they were kind of hesitant. They didn't want to turn him over to him, tried to find excuses for it. Anyway, he doesn't talk to him for a long time, Massasoit. But he then becomes deathly ill. And he's to the point of when he's got hours to live. And so all of the sachems from all the tribes were coming to pay their respects. That's what they do. And so Plymouth felt, well, we better go pay our respects as well. So Winslow takes Hobbamock, who's a Indian who lives with the Pilgrims, and a visitor named John Hammond. The three of them go up there to pay their respects. Well, while he's there, he treats him for some of the symptoms that he has. He goes into great detail describing. It's really kind of gross, as far as how all the things he did. But then he basically gets his eyesight back. He comes back to life within a short period of time. I mean, days. It took days. It wasn't overnight, but he actually brings him back to life. Wow! And it's a testimony to all the leaders of all the Indian tribes. But that he says, he tells those leaders in front of everybody, he says, now I know the English are my friends and love me. And whilst I live, I shall never forget this kindness they have showed me. And it was like, that cemented that relationship. In fact, before Winslow left to go back to Plymouth, Assamequin tells Hobbamock, he pulls him aside and says, tell Winslow and to tell Bradford that the Massachusetts tribe is getting ready to attack them. they're going to attack another English settlement that had started up north of there at Wessagusset. They were going to wipe that tribe out, or that colony out. And because they were an English colony, they assumed that the Pilgrims would go to defend them, so they're going to take them both out at the same time. So Assamequin shares this information with Winslow, and he says, or he shares it with Hobbamuck to tell Winslow. And not only that, he says, and here's what you need to do about it. Assamequin doesn't just tell them that these guys are going to tips them off. He says, you need to go, and there's two guys, Wittawamut and Peksuit, are two Sachems from different tribes who are the ringleaders of this thing. You need to go and kill those two. And also, he's got a couple of people, lieutenants or people that are working. So there's about 6-7 people that Massasoit told them they need to go and take care of.
It's like, if you want peace, you have to take care of it.
Everything will be fine if you do that. And they went back and they're going, we can't just go and do this. They can't. We don't go and just kill people.
Yeah.
But we don't know if we can trust what one guy told us this. Mm-hmm. So instead they wait for some confirmation. It's the old biblical admonition, 2 or 3 witnesses, right? Yeah. So they're sitting there and struggling about what to do with this information. And Phineas Platt, who's a guy up in Wessagusset, all of a sudden comes storming into their village, all sweating and huffing and puffing, and he's all telling them that the Indians are planning to attack us. So they got confirmation. Then there was one other Indian chief that came and told them the same thing. So they had 3 witnesses, and they said, you know what? I think we probably should act on this.
We probably need to make this happen.
Massasoit Assamequin probably really is our friend and is being faithful to what he said about us. And so they went, and that's when they killed those people. And that's what everybody likes to say, oh, they just attacked people and did all that. Wow. So anyway, that's the kind of thing that most people don't know, those kinds of things, those kind of stories. That
I love stories.
Even the treaty itself, it's the longest lasting treaty of between any authority, English authority, and a Native American tribe in history, because it lasted over half a century.
Wow.
Every other treaty engaged in, no matter what tribe, you go out to the far west coast, and all of them were broken. Those treaties were broken in the lifetime of the people that entered into that agreement, with the exception of the one at Plymouth, this treaty that the Pilgrims entered into with the Pokanoket tribe. So that's awesome. These are the things that people just, when you hear that, when you understand that's what happened, you go, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How do I reconcile that with these people who came over and just wanted to steal and take? They stole their corn. That's a whole other story we could talk about. I've
stole their corn.
On and off here.
So do you even know what corn looked like back then?
Doesn't look like what it looks like now.
It's like, really? Do you know? It looked like wheat stalk. Okay.
Be thankful that you could enjoy. That's the stories that I like. For me, like I love history to begin with. But that's the kind of stuff I'm the type of guy who will drive past an abandoned, blocked up building or whatever, and my brain will attempt to try to imagine,
recreate.
What did it look like when it first opened? Who were the people that owned it? There's one, it's I don't know what it is about this particular. There's nothing fancy. There really isn't. It's just this little brick building. I'm assuming it may have been a garage back in the day. It's the blue one on 1 across from Home Depot.
Yeah.
It's this little thing that sits next to the highway, and every time I drive past it, I my brain just runs off to these different places of what was the guy who owned it. Was it how was his family and all these lines, and I'm always fascinated by it because I believe truly that every single person has a story, and everybody's story is just as exciting as the person's next to him. It's just a matter of being willing to share it,
right?
And I love that kind of stuff. Those things that you don't hear about normally.
The other thing is when you talk about how people hated the Pilgrims hated the Indians and the Indians hated if that's the case, when you ask people, did you know that there were 4 people who were charged with murder of an Indian and 3 of them got hung in Plymouth. So how do you reconcile? If that's what, if they didn't even, if they were so bent on injustice rather than justice,
Right.
why would they even bring them to trial?
Yeah. Well, there's other, like, let's think about it too. If they were so about just greed and taking of resources and everything else, why were they bringing women and children?
That's correct.
You know what I mean?
Why,
It would
why
have
weren't
been,
they going with just military?
Yeah, it would have been along the lines of the conquistadors and stuff. They would have rolled through there that way, and they would have taken everything out. And even if, let's play it along and say, okay, well, here's their reason for why it was women and children. Okay, you don't think for a second that the Native American tribes along that area couldn't come in and completely all just wipe them out?
Home field advantage.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't like they showed up with like 8, 10, 12, 900 ships, and they're like, we've got 1 million people here. We're starting off. No, it was a small group. It was 102 different people. That was nothing. The Indians could have easily have wiped them out, and they would have been. It could have been like the Roanoke Island colony that we don't know nothing about.
I have no idea what happened there.
But it could. I mean, seriously, they could have completely disappeared, and no one would ever have known they were there.
And that wasn't lost on the Indians because they're the ones that saw that.
Yeah.
And actually noticed there was something different about these people. There was a spiritual. They were much more of a spiritual tribe. That's why I always thought it was interesting when you say, why did they land there? Why at Cape Cod? Why the Pokanoket? Of all the tribes on the eastern coast, why this tribe? Because God had providentially prepared not only the ground, he actually cleared out that whole Patuxent area was cleared out with that plague from 1616 to 1619 that decimated the Wampanoag Confederation, and they were weak, and they were concerned about that. The Narragansett that was southwest of them didn't get touched at all by this plague, and they were kind of like licking their chops, and they could use the help of the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims certainly could use their help, but the land itself was land that the Indians abandoned. They didn't go anywhere near it. Because the plague could still be contaminated.
No. The plague land. It's plague land.
Took their land. No, God prepared this land. He prepared this particular tribe and this particular leader, the Massasoit Assamiquan, and also Squanto, and the other Hobbamock was. You talk about somebody who's didn't get due justice in our history. I mean, what a remarkable story. I think this is the thing that saddens me so much is that the Native Americans, especially in the New England area, have so much to be proud of, and it's a shared history of really bringing together what started out to be a really great relationship. And what ended up, and it, like I said, it lasted the life of the people that first generation that was there. It was only as things expanded quickly and when they started bringing cattle and the pigs and cattle that would roam and cause problems. And then those became court cases where, they were destroying crops and things that the Indians had, and people wanted satisfaction. And so, but that whole court system developed in Plymouth. And of course, later it got to where the King Philip's War in 1675 is really the official came to a head, and that battle, and then by 1691, the Plymouth colony was totally officially subsumed into the Massachusetts Bay Colony officially,
right?
By because it was still part of the English, the Crown still was the authority.
Yeah, they still controlled everything in that way. Chris, it looked like you had something to say that you wanted to pop into.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to address you specifically since we're the public schooled kids here. But basically, what I find really interesting is like you're listening to David talk about this stuff, right? And the wealth of knowledge that he is. And what I find so fascinating is in the public school sphere of education, we got such a vanilla, bland representation of what happened along those lines with the Pilgrims and the Native Americans and what was going on between them. And it was like, oh, they, the tight black, heavy clothing, and which David would tell you is not even what they wore.
No, it's
that's another fascinating thing. And you get this such a boring representation. These people, just that one story that David told you right there could be in a movie in and of itself.
Yes.
About
right. That could be a good short clip. A short you could make that into that everything he just put. You could make it either into a couple of small 10 minutes, or you can do a full length film off of what he just talked about.
That's right. Yeah, and we it's these. Let's face it, these were epic adventures that these people were going on and treading these paths that just started what we have today. They blazed that trail for the founding fathers to come in after them.
And I think it's important to make note that they didn't really, that wasn't their ambition. They didn't think that far ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the leadership. They were all very acutely aware of their own mortality and how, like Bradford, one of the things we're going to share in the 1620 experience was how intimately involved with death he was. Every 2 or 3 years, somebody significant in his life died from the time he was born. His father died when he was 1 year old. He never knew his father.
Wow.
And his grandfather, then the male head of the household, he died when he was 5. And then his mother dies when he's 7.
Wow.
And so he's orphaned by the time he's 7. So he lives with his uncles. And they don't live that long. And his grandfather Hansen dies in that time period. His sister dies before he goes over to, he's 17, 18 years old. His sister's 19 or 20 when she dies before he goes over to Holland. Then his wife dies there. And it's just, people were dying. He was so intimately acquainted with death that you think about what that does to your perspective, that you're not promised tomorrow, let alone today. So they lived for the day. They lived each day to be salt and light, to live their faith, so they would be pleasing to God when their time came, and that could be tomorrow. So they weren't thinking about let's. They got a 25-year plan. We're going to take over New England, and we're going to wipe out all these Indians. And it's like
they were thinking what's happening in the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
How can we be faithful?
Is the moral of the story, don't hang around Bradford because you're probably going to die.
Just don't be related to the guy.
Just stay away. Shake his hand and keep walking.
One of the other things I thought was really interesting, I feel like I've studied up on the Pilgrims. I've really taken an interest in them prior to this and everything. And one of the times I was sitting with David down there in Delaware, we had talked about the Pilgrims and the Puritans. And we talked about, I don't know if it was right before the show or when the show got started, that one big influence on my life as far as the Pilgrims are concerned is the Kirk Cameron film, Monumental. And I don't know, maybe they didn't do a good enough job of it, but I thought that the Pilgrims and the Puritans were one and the same.
Yeah, I did too.
I didn't know that. Yeah, exactly. And David could tell you that is not the case.
Well, yeah, that's true. There were some very distinctive differences. But that's a complicated topic too, because the whole term Puritan was a derisive term. It was like when you call somebody a name, and everybody kind of mocks and laughs at it. So that
almost
was not
like goody two shoes in that
term of endearment. You didn't see a sign that said, "This is the Puritan Church," because I want to go join that.
Yeah.
They call themselves reformers.
Right.
They considered themselves reformers. They were this idea of purifying and trying to change the Roman Catholic Church, because even though it's a fascinating study of going back into the 16th century, and you look at the whole first half of the 16th century and Henry VIII, you go back that far, when he actually, instead of divorcing the queen, so he could have
the new queen.
He was actually divorcing the church.
Right.
That's what he divorced.
He went. Yeah.
The church. He said, "Pope's not in charge. I am."
Right.
Exercise the divine right of kings, and And this is where that church kept a lot of the rituals, the ceremonies, and all of the corruption and all the things that was going on at the time that they had a problem with.
They did.
And yet, so it wasn't just theological, because the Pilgrims were strict Calvinists. That's no question. I mean, it's clearly that was where they were coming from.
We got Chris and Dave
this
here
whole
with us.
gradient-
We got to hold on for another commercial break here real quick. Hold on. Chris and Dave, we'll be right back.
I'm sorry. This is past my bedtime, and I
No, you're good,
I
man.
should be asleep by now.
If we didn't have to worry about just little commercial breaks and things, I wouldn't. You roll, man. You go.
I'd sit back and be like, another pot of coffee. Please.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
It's fun.
No, this like I said, this is the stuff that I like because the little nuances, because everybody thinks they know everything about everything.
About everything.
About everything.
About everything.
And
it's one of the ideas. So one of the things that we've talked about in the past is okay, our founding fathers and any of the generations that became founders of where we are here in America, they were eons above educationally than most any of our generations nowadays. And I'm just talking about, and it mainly dawned from the fact of them having to deal with mortality on a daily basis. They literally had to know. They knew they had 25, maybe 40 years.
yeah, when you
If they were really lucky,
And
they had 25 years.
that's
But
if you
they
lived
were
the term.
if they were super lucky, they got to 40. And everything had to be, all your education, everything had to be pushed faster and just so you could get out and do what you needed to.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the world would be a whole lot different place, obviously, if everyone lived as if tomorrow wasn't coming.
Yeah. It's not going to happen.
I mean,
it's not going to happen.
no, it's not. But
But that's exactly why what I think the Pilgrims can be such an example for too is a lot of things. It's priorities. It's getting things properly, to view things properly, and to not be enamored with the things that are not.
This is Defenders Live.
I swear, if we did not have to have commercial
I know.
breaks, if we
I know.
didn't have to have a commercial break,
darn you, sponsor! No, no,
Be careful.
I know.
I know.
Shh. We're gonna get a call tomorrow.
yeah,
Ron's
Ron's
be
gonna
like,
call us.
"What
Hey,
the
what is this, dude?
I know.
No,
I know.
But if you, other than the very first 30 minutes,
yeah. Well,
I would not even then. Okay, but
I can't
other than
even
the
that
first
too.
30 minutes, if you go back and listen through the commercial breaks on the video side, you could hear some really good information here.
Oh yeah,
really good conversations.
We've been doing the 2-hour show for what now feels like an eternity.
No, we started
Tonight.
But it was
Yeah,
the beginning.
yeah,
I know.
right.
No, actually, that's the funny part about
tonight
it.
seems like it's going by a lot faster.
That's what I was getting ready to say. We've moved to 2 hours the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
We made the decision. We're going to dive in. We're going to do it this way. And so now we're doing the 2-hour show. We've been doing it since January. This by far is the fastest show I feel like we've ever done, especially in the 2-hour mark. Because
It's incredibly entertaining for us because we get to hear some stories and some knowledge that we never get to hear.
yeah. And I love dude. I'm telling you, like I love a history.
Yeah, you
Loves
do.
it. Like when
This
I
guy's
was
a buff.
When I was a kid, and again, we live in North Carolina, so I was the type. My mom would. We didn't just do Williamsburg. Like we have Duke Homestead, we have the Mordecai House, we have all. There's all these places that are scattered throughout just central North Carolina here, and I got drugged to every one of them in the middle of August and July.
Like, why are we out here, Mom? Look, this is how they made butter. Thanks, Mom.
All right, great.
But no, but even from back then, I again, I didn't like the heat, but I had an appreciation for history and stuff, and I get tickled with because like you mentioned Squanto. I don't think there's too many people who know who Squanto is.
Or if they do, they know very, very,
Very
little.
Very little.
It's like, oh yeah, that guy, yeah.
Yeah, and he like, what?
Isn't that the Last of the Mohicans guy?
That's what I was ready to say. He's the Last of the Mohicans guy, right?
Well, he's the most popular or most well-known of the Indians, actually, more so than Assamequin. Most people don't know about Havamak, who was really a fantastic guy, I think. But Squanto is the one that was actually taken as a prisoner. A Captain Hunt rounded up about 20-some Indians from that Patuxent area and took them to Spain, Malaga, Spain. And he actually got purchased by some friars, and he ended up making his way to England, and he learned English. So he spoke better English than Samoset. Samoset's the one we also hear about because he's the one that came into their first introduction to Native America. The first interaction they had was when Samoset strolled into their village and said, "Welcome, Englishmen."
Wow.
In broken English. And so they talked with him and everything. And he brings Squanto back, who could speak better English than himself. And and Bradford called Squanto an instrument sent of God for our good beyond our expectation. And I always assumed that relationship lasted for quite a while for somebody to have that kind of but he was only, Squanto was dead by 1623.
Oh, wow.
And that's an interesting story, too, because the Pilgrims kind of kept him. And again, he had been very underhanded in some of his dealings with trying to convince a lot of the different leaders of these tribes to look to him, because he'd tell them stories about how they have the plague. They have it buried under the ground, and they can bring it out whatever they want. So, but if you deal with me, and he was actually trying to, in a sense, take over, get some, people to pay tribute to him rather than to Assamequin. So
wow.
that was the sedition he was sort of guilty of. And when Bradford didn't turn him back to them, they were on a trade mission, and like within a day he got sick and died.
Wow.
Well then.
Yeah. So people are going, how did you think maybe he was poisoned or somehow they executed the judgment? They said, okay, you're not going to send him back.
It looks like that plague happened. They just dug that plague right out of the ground and gave it right to him. There you go.
Yeah.
Assamequin actually sent to Plymouth his knife and stuff, so he would take off his hands and his head and send it back to him to execute the punishment. And again, the Pilgrims, we can't do that.
We don't desecrate people's bodies.
Jeopardizing this relationship with Assamequin. But that's when he gets sick. Isn't it the scenario here? How he gets deathly ill. How does all this, you can't make this stuff up.
Say, Walt Disney did not tell the story this way.
No.
Just so we're clear, this was not in the movie at all.
That did not happen.
Squanto was the one who he taught the English how to set their corn, how to put fish in there to fertilize it. And there's all these wonderful things that Squanto. So Squanto was the Pilgrim's friend.
Yeah, that's all it was ever said. That's how Disney said it.
Don't talk about anything else.
Exactly.
Don't talk about the fact that he was a swindler and went behind the chief's back and did.
Well, but if you think about it, though, to me, and we could go, like, you could probably piece things all the way down if you really get technical.
Sure.
But the story of the Pilgrims and 1620 and everything else, when you think about the connections and like you said, how God went ahead and cleared the land and done all this stuff, this arguably and I don't know if they saw it this way, but that was a modern day Bible story. The exact same thing. I mean, God did it for the Israelites. How many times? And not just for the nation, but for individuals throughout the Bible, where he went ahead and way in advance and had taken care of stuff. And unless you sit back and look at the full picture, you go,
oh, and you start seeing the dots all connecting and making it, and it's just that's the stuff that's fascinating.
And
to me.
that's the unique thing about Bradford's story, because he's giving you God's perspective on it. He's sharing it from how's all this fit together and how it all makes sense. And it's interesting how the Wampanoag tribes ended up becoming and they were known as the Praying Indians, interestingly. And they also, a lot of by 1690, the ones that were left after King Philip's War and all the aftermath of that, the majority of those Indians were identified, I don't say they were Christian. They claimed to be Christians. They would walk 10 miles, they say, for services, different places, and of course, even the skeptics say, that they were just doing that so they'd be in good favor with. They were trying to look good for. That way, they'd leave the English would leave them alone. If they just pretended to be Christians. Like, what? You can look at it that way, but it's a pretty cynical. I mean, people don't do that kind of. It's like. That's true with any Christian.
That's a lot of effort, for back then especially. They don't. Now, I don't know. I wasn't there, but I would assume that just based off of as we've had discussions earlier already about but those people back then were living minute to minute. They were living in the now. It was, this is the time that I know that I have that God's given me. What am I doing with it? Let me do it to the best of my ability. We don't have that perspective anymore, and a lot of people I think are taking that. The perspective they have now, which is I've got forever, I can do whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And then you start throwing in things, that cynicism, that becomes the filter. Well, why do they have that filter? Because that's probably what I don't want to say it's their full core, but they're definitely wrestling with that very same problem. And so they just assume that everyone else is doing it.
When you feel like you have infinite amount of time to do anything you want, then you
will do
you think cynically about the time that you have, because you're like, oh well, that guy could have just been doing this because who knows, 20 years down the road,
I've got time.
Well, the 1620 experience, by the way, you can learn a lot more about the episodes and a lot more. You can follow how we're doing and things at 1620experience.com. That's the link. But I wanted to mention in our first episode, if you can see this, Os Guinness, The Last Call for Liberty is a new book he's got out. But in our first episode, one of the things we want to start off doing is making sure we understand why the Pilgrims were important and who they were. Why are they in American history at all, for that matter? And one of the things Os Guinness talks about, not just in this book, but he talked about the golden triangle of freedom. And what made America when it was founded was there were three pillars or indispensable interconnected supports for our government. And the one leg, it was a triangle, and each needed the other two sides in order to exist. And it was faith, it was belief in the Bible and in the truth of God's word, and the truth being Christ himself. So it was faith, it was freedom and liberty. And so faith needed freedom and liberty, but also virtue. And the other one was virtue. You have to have all three. And if you attack those, or to the extent you attack any one of those three supports, then you're weakening the whole thing or destroying it altogether. And all you have to do is ask yourself, have you seen much attack against faith in our country? Against freedom and liberty?
No.
Against virtue or
morality? What?
No. So they're attacking all three at the same time. Yeah. You're not just attacking one or the other, but they're attacking all three at the same time. And this was, and the thing that we point out in the first episode is the reason the Pilgrims are important to our founding in the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution and our government is because the Pilgrims represent or exemplify better than anybody, any people in American history or in world history for that matter. They exemplify those three principles. They're the epitome of faith. Their faith was renowned even in their own time. Freedom with the Mayflower Compact and self-governance, and virtue. Bradford talks about the way they treated each other during the dying time, or when all these people were dying that first winter, and how they treated the seamen, the crew that were all, half their number died as well. And the way they treated the Native Americans, they were the exemplars in virtue, faith, and freedom, which is the golden triangle of freedom. It's what our country depends on, and we've got to return to those values. And for Americans, I don't care politically which side of the aisle you're on. If you believe in freedom of faith and freedom of conscience, and you believe in liberty, individual liberty, not group liberty, not by like you were talking about earlier,
Right. Not
group
tribalism.
identity.
Yeah, tribalism.
It's individual liberty, individual freedoms, and virtue, personal responsibility, personal accountability. Those are the things that we got to return to and just live the life that God wants us to live to our neighbors.
Yeah.
And that's getting us back to where we need to be and overcoming all this nonsense that we're having to deal with today, which are a byproduct of a lot of
Because there's
lies.
a lot of it. There's so much BS going on. The stupid. It's just. It's fascinating. And for me, I find it. I don't know how any generations older than me feel about it. I don't know if it's changed as fast. But for me, I feel like it was literally yesterday because allegedly, the 90s was supposed to be and I'm only touching on this for a second, but was supposed to be like that point in all of history that everything was starting to smooth out and mellow out. We weren't people were all getting along.
Right.
There was individual freedoms. Everything was kind of starting to mellow. Of course, I was, preteen, teenage. So
Perspective.
yeah, I may not have been paying attention.
Right.
But ever since, but I feel like, as of late, especially, 2004, 5, it's just kind of, it went from, hey, we're getting better to, and it just, everything is just kind of the apple cart's overturned and now everything's just spread back out. And then this time, instead of, like when something like that would happen, people aren't cleaning up now they're all standing around blaming somebody else and being ugly. And it's just,
I'd say it specifically started right around that 2007 mark.
that's possible.
Right around 2007-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of when it started really hyping up pretty good.
Well, no, I'm saying I was noticing little things before that. I give you what you're talking about, but I was getting these weird vibes like way before that. There were certain things I'm like, wait a minute, why are you complaining about that now? And it goes back to, like you said, we're the perspectives that we have, especially in America, we've taken this country for granted.
Thank you.
Freedoms
That's exactly
that we
right.
have, the things that these 102 people did, just them. Forget the other generations, forget the other colonies, forget the other everything. We have taken the freedoms that we have been given. Literally, as we said before, God paved the way in every way, to the point that, like with, and I granted Squanto screwed himself later, but, to the fact that colonies weren't even there yet. He gets there and he grows and he goes, and then God goes, okay, and he gets captured and then taken, and all of that was all done and planned and set up in advance. God did all of this stuff, and we have taken it so for granted.
There's been so much sacrifice throughout the generations.
Immensely.
You think about all the people we all know people who have given their lives, in service, in the different wars. We've been in so many wars for so long now and people have sacrificed. I keep thinking of my dad. One time, he served in World War II, was in the China, Burma, India theater, but it was one of those things where when I think back on World War II and all what people sacrificed for our freedom and our individual liberties, that today we've got people, it's like this is what they fought against. It's what we're embracing. We're saying, yeah, bring it on. Oh, we like this, we want this. And it's like, what happened? And when you don't suffer, when you are given things, people have been you talk about taken for granted or coddled, then they forget God.
Yep.
Is what ends up happening. They totally, look how everything's going to continue on like this, and we're all going to have our 401ks, and I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. And everybody's just living for themselves, and it's like you have forgotten who you are, and you've forgotten who God is.
Yeah.
And I think this is a call to I'm seeing it in the churches. I'm seeing it people saying, getting serious with God again, because even with COVID, the reminders again of the brevity of life. I've known, probably most people have known somebody who has either died from the COVID or died from the vaccine, one or the other.
Yeah.
And it's like surprises. I mean, there are people who they were fine. They were fine. And then 2 to 3 days later, they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're being reminded that, you're not in charge of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to come to grips with who you are, who God is. And this is what the Pilgrims, I think, exemplified so well. It's just this seriousness of which they took life. They enjoyed life. They weren't this, again, that's one of the Puritan, you think about the dour person. They never have any fun. They don't, it's like, that's all.
They equate them to being like Amish.
That's such a myth.
They think they're the Amish people, and no offense to Amish people, but that's what they have, this mental thing where they get up at 4 a.m. and the first thing they do is build a barn, and then they have breakfast, and then it's just this labor and toil, and movies have made it look like that, but that's what people thought.
And somehow they found a way to make everything dyed black.
I know.
Yeah. Hey, Dylan, one thing that you brought up earlier is about the mentality of people, how people don't speak up until the fire is the hottest, right? And it's such an interesting thing. One experience I had was as a school board director. I was appointed to and then elected to being a school board director. And what I always found interesting is that you could talk for months about something that's going to come up for a vote, and no parents will be in that audience. It's open to the public.
Yeah.
And it's on that day that you take that vote when people show up with the torches and pitchforks, right? Well, I think what David's trying to say here, what we're all experiencing, is this inflammation in society right now of people just being so reactive to things in a nuclear manner. You know what I mean? And God has truly chosen us for this time. For each of us, a purpose has put us here. God has put David here to tell this story.
Yeah.
God has put us all into these situations that we can tell our own stories, or we can be there for what's going on. I mean, we are living in we are living in biblical times right now.
Oh yeah. And the thing, I like what you put, because God is not reactionary. There's nothing about God that is ever reactionary. And he's trying desperately. He's tried desperately through the entire Bible and with everything now. Live your life from not a reactionary point, but from the other side of that. Exactly. Thank you. I couldn't gasp for word.
No, it's but it's where we are.
ADHD.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's
or as Loki says, glorious purpose. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, because everything that you look at, a perfect example is abortion. Nobody stops to find a way to prevent it from happening.
Wait, that's because we all know the way to prevent it.
Well, and I got that. But I'm saying, but we know how to stop it. But then there's that argument of, they're going to do it anyway, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm saying, if you're going to ride that excuse, then why are you not coming up with technology and things like that to cover, to offset it in the front end, which they do have stuff. I understand that.
I mean, there are things.
Instead of going, we're going to just circumvent all of that and come to here, and now we're going to kill something. Kill an unborn child that's defenseless and everything else.
Right.
It's that concept. Everything is always, it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. Crap, it happened to me.
Now
what do I do?
Now we got to react.
Yeah.
And the entire Bible is, like I said, is all laced with
prepare.
That way you don't need to react, because if you're prepared, then when the time comes, it's not so bad. Think of Joseph back in Egypt when God kept telling him, hey, 7 years of famine's coming. You need to stock up on all this stuff through all of this bounty. And everybody's like, why are you saving this stuff? He's like, God,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Just do what I tell you to do. And then 7 years comes, and
the first prepper.
Exactly.
Right. The very first.
Look how that worked out.
Not only was he the first prepper, he was the first one assigned by a government.
I know. The only one, I think.
The only one ever assigned by a government to actually prepare.
But it's that kind of.
Do you mind if I do a quick plug real quick?
No. Go for it.
The Whiskey Tango Life podcast, back when I knew you guys under the show, the Generation Y Conservative, it was more of a comedy show, taking politics, making fun of it along the lines of what you guys do and everything.
He's grown up.
I've switched this over now to to doing interviews with people that have personal stories that revolve around hot political topics as much as possible. And this Monday is an interview that's getting released. It's Tony McFadden, and she's a pro-life advocate. She had an abortion herself, being on the topic that you were talking about there, Dylan. Awesome story.
Nice.
I can't wait for it to come out. You can find it on the YouTube channel or on major audio platforms. It'll be released on Monday at 11 a.m. And it's an awesome story. I really encourage people to listen to it.
Definitely. See, that's what happens when you grow up, Stephen.
Oh, is that what happens when you grow up?
You start doing serious radio.
I figured you got a suit and also wore a nice collared shirt. And
no, you realize you're closer to being the adult now than I am.
I am, because I actually have a 3-piece suit again,
I don't.
and that fits me.
And you're writing a book.
And I'm writing a book, so I have things. It's good.
No. I'm gonna be just sitting here,
Twiddling your thumbs.
I'm okay with being the Jerry Lewis of the group.
That's fine.
I'm okay with that.
I'm good with being the straight man. This works.
Dean Martin?
Yeah.
You're gonna be Dean Martin?
No, just the straight man.
He was the drunk one.
I was gonna say Dean Martin signs the alcohol and the womanizing.
That's right. That's
Okay.
why I'm just the straight man of this. I'm not the Dean Martin. It's very different.
Bing Crosby.
There you go.
There we are. The man knows his way.
I just had so many jokes and expressions I wanted to do.
Way too many jokes. Look, we've got. You guys have so much information. And You've got everything that's popping out. I did while we were talking the entire time. Honestly, I was scrolling through your website and going through all the stuff,
links and
looking through all the links. There is so much information out there that they have on their website, on their Facebook. I even linked the Last Call for Liberty book for you guys out there. It's all there on all the social medias.
I've got 3 credits on Amazon on Audible.com.
Oh, you're about to buy that deal. Yeah,
I'm going to get it because I need to burn through them. I'm tired of having these credits hanging there.
He needs to
I need to cancel it, and I need something so that it works out perfectly. Thank you for recommending that.
Good books. But no, these guys are the real deal.
And these are going to be, we're going to put these also on the link actually in the, this because we put them into the chats on everything, so it throws it out in there, but we're going to redo it into the comments and stuff later again to make sure, or not just in the comments, but in the description.
It's already down
in the description.
It's already in the description.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, it's already there.
Never mind. Belay that.
Once again, I am the adult.
I know.
But no, that's preparing. That's what we were talking about. I prepared that. No, but these guys are the real deal.
Yes,
this mini series, this docu-series that's coming out. It is amazing the information that they're going to have in there. If it wasn't a good idea to do this, if it wasn't a real deal, one, I know that Chris wouldn't be a part of it.
That's
Two,
what I was going to say.
I do know that Sam and Kevin would never jump on this if it wasn't something that was actually worth the time and the money to put into it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. When Chris texted me and was like, "Hey," and started telling me about it, I was like, "Oh, ay Dios mío, this is fantastic."
Exactly.
And so I have been excited about this. We were supposed to have these guys on last week, and
something happened.
The weather.
Was it the weather?
We had to cancel. That was the night we had to cancel.
Oh, dang it. That's right. Yeah. Which I apologize. In North Carolina, every now and again, the weather's weird.
That was when that hurricane or whatever, the leftovers, tropical storm, whatever rolled through.
Elsa.
Yeah.
That's it.
That one.
Yeah.
That thing.
We let it go.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Well, this is something I want to thank you guys for having us on tonight. This is really something we feel is it's taken on a life of its own. It's certainly something God is doing because it's nothing we would ever fathom doing. I mean, or even think of doing. I mean, I was content I just wanted to share Bradford's story. I'm planning to do this, to small groups, to churches, to historical societies. I just want to become more knowledgeable and learn more. There's some really great history that there's some great books that have come out in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And so that was my ambition. But others seem to think that that people need to hear this. The time is right for it. Like you mentioned, for such a time as this. And, and so I turn it, God's got it. And I want to just thank Beth Vickers, our executive producer, is just the most amazing executive producer out of all the executive producers I've ever known.
Yeah, with all the, with all those people I've known, I don't know.
No,
She's responsible for a lot of that marketing material on the
Oh, and the
website that you
marketing
said was so well
material,
put
it's-
together. So
it's
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, she did
I
a great
just-
job.
It's awesome.
I'm just so humbled by it and in awe of it, and I am excited to see where God takes it, because it's his story, not ours.
exactly.
And that's why they call it history.
I see what you
they
did there. His
Yeah.
story.
Once again,
got it.
1619.
1620.
1620. 1619 is dead.
No.
1619 is dead. This is now the 1620 experience. This is what you need to look at. This is where you need to go. All the
16
links are there.
experience, yep.
All the links are
.com.
there on all of our stuff. It's all below all of our information. Go check them out. They are. This is going to be amazing.
Uh-huh.
If you love history, if you want to get involved in this sort of thing, go donate. They've got a page for it. They're trying to raise $500,000. It will get this thing off and running the proper way.
The right way.
The right way.
Exactly. Chris, David, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We're going to have you back on at some point for sure. This is something that you need to have with American Pride Roasters coffee from AmericanPrideRoasters.com.
Well, if you like history, you should anyway.
It doesn't matter if you like history, you should have the coffee in your hand. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
Well, that's because,
it's historically great coffee.
Yes.
It's guaranteed to make you swallow every single time you put it into your mouth.
Right.
Mojo50.com is where you go to find us and other hosts and awesome shows over there. You can check them out, mojo50.com. Follow us on all the social medias at DOAE Show. Use the hashtag Arm Yourselves. Guys, have a great weekend. Be safe. We'll see y'all Monday.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
God bless.